The silence of deep space was absolute, a heavy blanket that covered the void between stars. On the bridge of the Invictus, the largest warship in the Galactic Empire's fleet, the silence was broken only by the low hum of the engine and the soft beeping of monitors. The Invictus was a monster of steel and light, a symbol of the Empire's power that stretched across 1,000 sun systems. But tonight, the crew was bored. Captain James Miller sat in his command chair, rubbing his tired eyes. He had served the Empire for 30 years, and he had seen everything. Or at least, he thought he had. "Status report," James said, his voice dry and lacking energy. "Sector 7 is clear, Captain," Ensign David replied from his station. David was young, fresh out of the academy, and still scared of the dark void outside the windows. "No activity. We are just scanning empty rocks and dust." James nodded slowly. "Keep scanning. The Emperor wants this sector secure. We cannot afford any surprises." Standing near the main viewport was Commodore Sarah. She was tall, with sharp features and eyes that looked for mistakes in everyone. She turned away from the black window and walked toward James. She did not like James. She thought he was too soft, too careful. She wanted action and glory. "This is a waste of time, James," Sarah said, her voice cold. "We are the pride of the fleet. We should be hunting pirates or crushing rebellions, not babysitting empty space at the edge of the galaxy." James sighed. "Orders are orders, Sarah. The Forbidden Zone is nearby. Command has detected strange energy readings in this area for months. We are here to investigate." "Strange energy readings?" Sarah laughed softly. "Probably just a broken star or a sensor error. There is nothing out here that can hurt the Invictus." Suddenly, the beeping on the bridge changed. It was no longer a slow, rhythmic beep. It became a loud, sharp alarm. David's hands flew across his keyboard, his face turning pale white. His eyes were wide as he stared at his screen. "Captain!" David shouted, his voice shaking. "I have a contact." It appeared out of nowhere. James sat up straight. "What is it? A meteor?" "No, sir," David yelled. "It's a ship. It just tore a hole in space and came through." The entire bridge crew turned to look at the main screen. In the center of the starry view, a small object had appeared. It was not like the sleek silver ships of the Empire. It was dark, jagged, and looked ugly. It was shaped like a shark, with sharp angles and a rough, gray surface. It looked primitive, like something built centuries ago before space travel was advanced. "Identify it," Commodore Sarah ordered, stepping forward. "Run the database." "Running," David said, typing fast. "Captain, the computer cannot identify it. It matches no known design. No Imperial vessel, no pirate ship, no alien craft. It is unknown." James stood up and walked to the viewport. He felt a strange feeling in his stomach. He was a veteran, and he learned to trust his gut. His gut was telling him that this small ship was dangerous. It looked weak compared to the massive Invictus, which was over 2 miles long. The dark ship was barely the size of a small shuttle. "Hail them," James ordered. "Open a channel." "Hailing frequencies open, sir," a communications officer said. "This is Commodore Sarah of the Imperial Dreadnought Invictus," Sarah said over the loudspeaker, her voice loud and authoritative. "Unknown vessel, you have entered a restricted military zone. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply, we will destroy you." The bridge waited for an answer. Seconds passed, then a minute. The dark ship just floated there, silent and still. "They are ignoring us, Commodore," David said, sounding nervous. "They are not answering our hails. They are not slowing down." Sarah's face turned red with anger. "How dare they? A simple, dirty ship ignoring the might of the Empire? Load the 4 batteries. Target their engines." "Commodore, wait," James said. raising a hand. He looked at the sensor readings more closely. David, give me a report on their energy levels. David looked at his screen, confusion all over his face. That is the strange thing, Captain. Their engines. They are cold. There is no heat signature. It is like they are dead in space, but they are moving. They are accelerating towards us at high speed. Cold engines? James repeated. That is impossible. Moving without heat? Maybe. Their technology is old and failing, Sarah said dismissively. It does not matter. They are a threat to our authority. Weapons Officer Tom, fire a warning shot across their nose. Let them see what we are capable of. Tom, a large man sitting at the weapons console, nodded. Target locked. Firing warning shot. The Invictus shook slightly as a massive green plasma bolt shot out from the front of the ship. It was a terrifying weapon, capable of melting a moon. The bolt flew across the void, passing right in front of the dark ship's nose. It was a clear message. Stop or die. James expected the small ship to stop. He expected them to turn around or send a surrender signal. But the dark ship did not flinch. It did not even try to dodge. The plasma bolt missed, and the small ship just kept coming, moving faster and faster toward the Imperial fleet. They did not even try to move, David whispered. Are they suicidal? Suddenly, the dark ship vanished. Not exploded, not destroyed. It just disappeared from the main screen. Where did it go? Sarah yelled, gripping the railing of the bridge. Tom, where's the target? I don't know, Commodore. Tom stammered, slamming his hands on his console. It just vanished from sensors. It is gone. Behind us, James shouted, looking at the secondary monitor. It teleported. It is behind. The escort cruiser Valiant. The view on the main screen shifted to show the rear of the Imperial formation. There, floating silently next to the Valiant, a ship 3 times the size of the Intruder, was the dark, jagged vessel. It sat there like a shark next to a whale. Order the Valiant to fire, Sarah screamed into her comms unit. Destroy that thing. It is too late, David said, his voice barely a whisper. A beam of pure white light shot out from the dark ship. It was silent, unlike the loud roar of Imperial plasma weapons. The beam hit the Valiant in the center. There was no explosion, no fire. The massive cruiser simply split in half. The metal looked like it was made of paper. The 2 halves of the ship drifted apart, the lights inside flickering and dying. The Valiant was dead, 5,000 souls gone in a single second. The bridge of the Invictus was deadly silent. Everyone stared at the screen in shock. No. Sarah breathed, her face pale. What kind of weapon is that? Then, a sound came over the speakers. It was a voice, but it sounded wrong. The universal translator was struggling, making the voice sound robotic and deep, layered with static. Leave, the voice said. It was simple, short, and filled with power. Now. James looked at Commodore Sarah. He saw fear in her eyes for the first time. But the fear quickly turned back to anger. Sarah was an Imperial, and Imperials did not bow to threats. They killed the Valiant, Sarah hissed. They think they can challenge the Empire? We have 100 ships in this fleet. I will not let a ghost ship insult us. Sarah, be reasonable, James said, trying to stay calm. That ship has technology we have never seen. It destroyed a heavy cruiser with 1 shot. Maybe we should listen to them. Silence, Captain, Sarah shouted. I am in command of this fleet. We are the Galactic Empire. We do not run. We do not hide. All ships, target the Intruder. Fire at will. Commodore, please, David said, his hands shaking. I am reading another energy spike from them. It is huge. It is bigger than the sun. I don't care, Sarah yelled. Fire! Destroy them. The Invictus and the remaining ships in the fleet turned their massive guns toward the small, dark speck that floated among the wreckage of the Valiant. They charged their weapons, filling the space with glowing energy. It was enough power to turn a planet into dust. But as the Empire prepared to fire, the dark ship sent one final message. It was not to the Invictus, but broadcasted to every ship in the sector, on every frequency. The voice was no longer struggling. It was clear, cold, and terrifyingly human. "You have chosen your path," the voice said. "Now you face the darkness." James Miller looked out the viewport. He knew, with a sinking feeling in his heart, that this was not just a skirmish. The Empire had just awoken a sleeping dragon, and they were not ready for what came next. The bridge of the Invictus was a chaotic symphony of alarms and shouting voices. The deafening sound of the warning klaxon echoed off the cold metal walls, mixing with the frantic typing of the crew. But above all this noise stood Commodore Sarah, her face red with rage. She could not accept that a small, ugly ship had destroyed one of her best cruisers. Her pride was wounded, and for her, a wounded pride was a dangerous thing. "I gave you an order," Sarah screamed, slamming her fist down onto the armrest of her chair. "Weapons Officer Tom, fire the main batteries. Blast that scrap metal into dust." Tom sat at his station, sweat dripping down his forehead. His hands hovered over the firing controls. He looked at the view screen. The small, dark ship was just sitting there, motionless in the void. It looked so fragile compared to the massive guns of the Invictus. But Tom had seen how the Valiant died. He had seen the silent beam that cut through the ship's shields like they were made of smoke. "Commodore," Captain James Miller said, his voice low but firm. He stepped between Sarah and the crew, trying to catch her eye. "Wait a moment. We do not know what they are capable of. They destroyed the Valiant instantly. Our shields might not stop that weapon." Sarah spun around, her eyes blazing. "Are you a coward, James? Are you afraid of a ghost ship? We are the Empire. We have thousands of ships. We control the galaxy. If we let this one ship push us back, every rebel and pirate out there will think they can challenge us." "I am not a coward," James said calmly, though he felt a cold knot of fear in his stomach. "I am a soldier, and a soldier knows when to fight and when to be careful. They warned us. They told us to leave. We are in their territory. The galaxy belongs to the Emperor," Sarah spat. "No territory is forbidden to us. Fire, Tom." "That is a direct order." Tom looked at James, then at Sarah. He knew he had to obey. He pressed the large red button on his console. "Firing main batteries," he whispered. The Invictus shuddered as two massive, glowing torpedoes launched from the belly of the ship. They streaked across the darkness, leaving trails of green fire behind them. They were aimed directly at the dark ship. It should have been an easy hit. The target was not moving. Everyone on the bridge watched with bated breath. The torpedoes grew closer and closer. A second before impact, the dark ship moved. It did not turn slowly like a normal ship. It blinked out of existence and reappeared 1,000 miles to the left in a fraction of a second. The torpedoes flew past empty space and exploded harmlessly against a distant asteroid. "They jumped?" Ensign David yelled, looking at his sensors in confusion. "But that is impossible. They didn't use a hyperdrive. The energy signature. It's like they just stepped sideways. They are moving faster than light without engines. Target them again," Sarah commanded, losing her patience. "Don't let them dodge." Before Tom could even acquire a new target lock, the alarm on David's console changed pitch. It was a high-pitched whine that hurt the ears. "Captain! Energy spike!" David screamed. "It is coming from them. It is off the charts." On the view screen, the small dark ship began to pulse with a dark purple light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Then, a wave of distortion rippled out from the ship, moving towards the Invictus. "Brace for impact," James yelled. Grabbing the railing of the bridge, the wave hit them. It was silent, but the effect was violent. The Invictus groaned as the metal hull twisted. Lights flickered and died, plunging the bridge into emergency red lighting. Sparks flew from consoles as the electrical systems overloaded. "Report," James shouted, struggling to stay on his feet as the floor vibrated. "Shields are gone," Tom reported, his voice cracking with panic. "I don't mean down, I mean gone. The wave just dissolved them. Our shield generators are offline. Hull integrity is falling to 80%. 70%, David yelled. "They are targeting our structure with some kind of gravity beam." James looked at the screen. The small ship was not firing bullets or lasers. It was sending pulses that bent space around the Invictus. The heavy armor plates of the dreadnought were buckling inward, as if an invisible giant hand was crushing the ship like a soda can. "Return fire," Sarah screamed, her arrogance finally cracking into fear. "Shoot them with everything." "We can't lock on," Tom cried out. "The targeting computer can't track them when they jump, and the sensors are blind from the interference." From the darkness of space, two smaller Imperial ships, frigates called the Fury and the Vengeance, moved to help. They tried to surround the dark ship, firing their plasma cannons in a desperate barrage. "Look," James whispered, pointing out the viewport. The dark ship did not run. It did not hide. It sped forward, moving with a grace that made it look like it was dancing through the stars. It weaved between the incoming plasma fire, untouched. As it passed the Fury, it scraped the side of the Imperial frigate. There was no explosion, but the Fury instantly lost all power. It began to drift, its lights going out, the crew inside frozen in the cold of space. "It cuts the power," David realized, his face pale. "They don't destroy us. They neuter us." Then, the dark ship turned its attention back to the Invictus. It stopped directly in front of the bridge. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The crew of the Invictus stared into the black hull of the enemy ship. They felt small. They felt like ants looking up at a boot coming down to crush them. "We need to retreat," James said to Sarah. He grabbed her shoulder and shook it. "Sarah, look at them. We have no weapons. We have no shields. We are sitting ducks. Order the fleet to pull back." Sarah looked at the screen, trembling. Her eyes were wide, her mouth slightly open. She saw the writing on the wall. They were outmatched completely. But she was a high-ranking officer of the Empire. To retreat was to admit defeat. We can't," she stammered. "The Emperor will have my head. If we stay, the Emperor will have no head to take," James said sternly. "Sound the retreat. Save the fleet." Before Sarah could give the order, the view screen flickered. A transmission came through. It bypassed the security codes and played on every screen on the ship. It was a video feed. The camera was looking at a human face. He was a man with short brown hair and cold eyes. He wore a simple black uniform with no medals, no rank insignia. Just a symbol of a blue and green planet on his chest. "This is Commander John of the Terran vessel Eris," the man said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "You attacked us despite our warning. You have seen what we can do. This was only a demonstration. The next shot will not be aimed at your ship. It will be aimed at your bridge. Leave this sector. You have 1 minute." The feed cut out. 1 minute? David shrieked. "Captain, they are charging their main weapon again. It is bigger than before." James looked at Sarah. He didn't wait for her permission. He turned to the helmsman. "Helmsman, get us out of here. Maximum speed. Take us into hyperspace." "What about the other ships?" the helmsman asked. There is no time to coordinate. James yelled. Every ship for itself. Jump. The helmsman pulled back the lever. The stars on the screen stretched into long lines of light as the Invictus engaged its hyperdrive. The massive ship groaned under the stress, but slowly, the image of the dark ship faded away as the Invictus jumped to safety. James Miller let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked at Commodore Sarah. She was slumped in her chair, her head in her hands. She looked broken. We lost, she whispered. James turned to the window where the stars were flying by in streaks. No, he said quietly. We survived. For now, he knew the galaxy had changed. There was a new player in the game, and they played by different rules. The Empire had picked a fight with a monster they did not understand, and the monster had just shown its teeth. James sat back in his chair, his mind racing. Who were these people? Where did they come from? And most importantly, what would they do next? He feared the answer, for he knew the Empire would not let this go. The war was just beginning, and he had a terrible feeling that the Empire would not be the winner. The stars outside the viewport were not the familiar stars of the Empire. They were distant and dim, viewed through the thick armored glass of the Aris. Inside the ship, the air was cool and smelled of ozone and recycled air. It was quiet here, much quieter than the screaming bridge of the Invictus. The technology was different, too. The walls were not just metal. They pulsed with a soft blue light, as if the ship itself was alive. Wires that looked like biological vines ran along the ceilings, carrying data and power not through electricity, but through light and gravity. Commander John stood in the center of the bridge, watching a large holographic map of the battlefield. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and short, brown hair streaked with gray. He wore a simple black jumpsuit with a patch on the arm, showing a blue and green globe. He did not look like a man who had just terrified the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. He looked like a man finishing a hard day at the office. They are gone, John said softly. The signature of their warp drives is fading into the deep void. Pilot Alex leaned back in his chair, spinning a stylus between his fingers. He was young, with messy blonde hair and a relaxed posture that belied his deadly skill. That was easier than I thought, Alex said, grinning. The big ship, the Invictus, turned and ran so fast I think they left their engine fumes behind. Did you see the look on that Commodore's face? Priceless. John did not smile. He turned to look at Alex, his expression serious. Do not get arrogant, Alex. We got lucky. If their flagship had fired its main battery before we disabled the targeting sensors, we would be debris right now. We are good, but we are not invincible. We are better than them, Alex insisted. Our tech is 100 years ahead of theirs. That gravity drive? They didn't even know what hit them. We should have chased them. We could have destroyed the rest of their fleet easily. No, John said sharply. The tone of his voice made the smile fade from Alex's face. We are not butchers. We are not pirates. We are the defenders of New Earth. John walked over to the tactical station where Lieutenant Chris was typing rapidly. Chris was a thin man with glasses, focused intently on the flow of data. Status report, Chris, John asked. The stealth plating is holding, Chris replied without looking up. They never got a solid lock on our hull signature. To their sensors, we looked like a glitch in the Matrix. Energy reserves are at 80%. We used a lot of power on the gravity pulse that crushed their shields. We need to be careful with the power, John said. If we run dry, we are sitting ducks. Chris nodded and finally turned to face the commander. John, I picked up a transmission while we were fighting. It was heavily encrypted, but I managed to break a small piece of it. What did it say? John asked, a feeling of dread growing in his chest. It wasn't a surrender, Chris said quietly. Just before the Invictus jumped away, they sent a coded signal. It was addressed to the capital world. They flagged the priority as Red Alpha. That means an extreme threat to the Empire. John sighed and rubbed his temples. So we didn't just scare them. We alerted them. It looks that way, Chris confirmed. The bridge fell silent as the weight of the news settled over the crew. They were humans, the descendants of a lost colony fleet that had vanished from Earth centuries ago. They had found a new home, a planet they named New Earth, far away from the wars and greed of the old galaxy. They had developed technology in secret, blending science with biology, creating machines that the rest of the galaxy could only dream of. They lived in peace, hidden behind a nebula that made their sector impossible to navigate. But now, the Empire had found them. Or rather, they had stumbled upon the Empire's patrol at the edge of the nebula. And now, the Empire knew that something powerful was hiding in the dark. They will come back, Alex said, his voice losing its playful edge. They will come back with a bigger fleet. Hundreds of ships. They will, John agreed. He walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the endless black space. And that is why we did what we did today. We didn't run immediately. We stayed. We fought. We showed them a glimpse of what we can do. But why? Chris asked. If we wanted to stay hidden, shouldn't we have just run without fighting? John turned back to his crew. Fear, Chris. The Empire respects only one thing: power. If we had just run, they would have chased us out of curiosity. They would have hunted us like animals. But by destroying their ship and scaring their flagship, we planted a seed of doubt. Now, they know we are dangerous. They will be afraid. I'd rather they be afraid than dead, Alex muttered. John placed a hand on the back of Chris's chair. We need to buy time. The Council on New Earth needs to know that the hidden era is over. We have to prepare our people for war. Just then, the ship's gentle hum changed pitch. A soft chime rang through the bridge. Commander, the ship's computer voice spoke. It was a soothing female voice, synthesized but warm. I am detecting an anomaly in the debris field of the destroyed cruiser, the Valiant. An anomaly? John asked, frowning. Show me. On the main holographic screen, the image of the destroyed ship appeared. It was floating in two pieces, dead and cold. But near the wreckage, a small device was blinking. It was a black box, painted with the red and gold colors of the Empire. It is a distress beacon, Chris said, typing fast. But it is not sending a signal for help. It is a recorder. It is transmitting the battle data to the Empire in real time. Can we jam it? John asked. It already sent the footage, Chris said, his face pale. But we can destroy it now. Do it, John ordered. A small laser beam shot out from the iris, vaporizing the beacon instantly. It doesn't matter, John said, mostly to himself. The data is already with them. They have the video of us fighting. They have our energy signature. John walked to the center of the room. Listen to me, he told the crew. We are not just soldiers. We are the wall. We are the only thing standing between the Empire and our families on New Earth. We used the gravity drive today, which was risky. But we showed them that we control the laws of physics better than they do. He looked at the map of the galaxy. The Empire spanned thousands of worlds. They had billions of soldiers. New Earth had only 5 million people. The Empire will try to find our home, John continued. They will send probes. They will send spies. We have to make sure they never find the way through the nebula. We have to be the monsters in the dark that scare them away. I'm ready, Commander, Alex said, sitting up straighter. If they want to fight, I'll give them a fight. Good, John said, because this was just the beginning. We ignited a fire today. Now we have to control it before it burns us all. Commander, Chris spoke up again. I recommend we change our course. We cannot go back to the nebula directly, or they might track us. We should take the long route through the asteroid belt. Agreed, John said. Set a course for the belt. Engage the silent running mode. I want to be invisible. The Ares turned gracefully in the void, its dark hull blending perfectly with the darkness of space. Inside the ship, the crew prepared for the long journey home. They knew that the peace they had known for generations was gone. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and they had just painted a target on their backs. But as John looked at the determined faces of his crew, he felt a surge of hope. Humanity was creative, adaptable, and fierce. The Empire had numbers, but humanity had spirit. And if the Empire wanted a war, they were going to get one they would never forget. The silence of the bridge was heavy, broken only by the sound of the Invictus struggling to repair its damaged systems. Captain James Miller stood near the viewport, looking out at the stars. They were in open space, safe for the moment, but the feeling of safety was an illusion. His hands were clasped behind his back, hiding the fact that they were shaking slightly. He had fought space pirates, alien rebels, and renegade robots, but he had never felt fear like the fear he felt when looking at that small, dark ship dock behind him. The crew was working frantically. Sparks flew from exposed wires as technicians tried to fix the consoles that had been fried by the enemy's gravity pulse. "Report," James said, his voice raspy. Commodore Sarah sat in her chair. She looked tired. Her perfect uniform was stained with dust and sweat. She stared at the main screen, which was currently showing a star map. "The Fury is drifting," Sarah said quietly. "No life signs. We managed to rescue a few escape pods from the Valiant before we jumped, but most of the crew is gone." She paused, her voice tightening. "Admiral Robert is on his way. He was nearby with the First Fleet. He will be here in less than an hour." James turned to face her. "Did you tell him everything? About what the ship did?" "I told him we were attacked by an unknown vessel," Sarah said defensively. "I did not tell him we ran away. I told him we were making a tactical retreat to assess the enemy." James sighed. He knew Sarah was trying to save her career. Admiral Robert was a ruthless man. He did not tolerate failure. If he knew a single ship had chased away the Invictus, he would probably have Sarah executed. "Sarah," James said gently, "you cannot hide the truth. That ship, it wasn't using normal weapons. It tore the Valiant apart like it was paper. If Robert tries to fight them head-on, he will lose." "He has 300 ships, James," Sarah snapped, her anger returning. "Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers. He has enough firepower to glass a planet. One little ghost ship cannot stop the might of the entire First Fleet." "It stopped us," James reminded her. Just then, the communications officer shouted, "Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Robert's flagship, the Titan. He's demanding a visual link." "Put him on screen," Sarah ordered, straightening her uniform and trying to look authoritative. The main screen flickered and changed. The face of Admiral Robert appeared. He was an older man with a gray beard and cold, hard eyes. He wore a uniform covered in medals. He looked arrogant. "Commodore Sarah," Robert said, his voice deep and booming. "My sensors show your ship is damaged, and I see you are fleeing the battle zone. Explain yourself. Where's the enemy?" Sarah hesitated for a split second. "The enemy vessel is highly unpredictable, sir. It uses advanced camouflage technology. We are regrouping to launch a coordinated strike." Robert laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "You are regrouping? From one ship? I have heard enough. I will handle this. Stay where you are and watch how a real commander fights. The Titan is moving in." "Admiral, wait." James stepped forward, unable to stop himself. "Do not engage them directly. Their shields ignore our energy weapons. They move by teleportation. It is a trap. Robert glared at James. Who is this? Captain Miller? You are the reason the Invictus is damaged, I assume. Silence yourself. I am dealing with this pest. The screen went black. He's not going to listen, Ensign David said from his station, his voice trembling. He's entering the sector. Bring the sensors back online, James ordered. I want to see this. The main screen switched to a view of the sector where the Ares was waiting. The Titan arrived with a massive fleet of warships. It was a beautiful and terrifying sight. Hundreds of sleek silver ships arranged in a perfect formation, their guns glowing red. It was the hammer of the Empire. On the screen, the small, dark ship, the Ares, was floating in the center. It looked tiny compared to the massive fleet. It did not move. It looked like a piece of rock in a river of steel. Target locked. Admiral Roberts' voice came over the open channel, which the Invictus was monitoring. Fire at will. The sky lit up. Thousands of laser beams and plasma missiles shot toward the Ares. It was enough power to destroy a small moon. The crew of the Invictus watched, expecting to see the small ship vaporized instantly. But then, the impossible happened. As the energy bolts reached the Ares, they simply curved. It was as if the space around the alien ship was bent glass. The lasers hit the invisible barrier and slid off into the void, missing the target completely. Gravity shields, James whispered. They are bending the light. No, Chris said, watching the data feeds on the bridge of the Ares, which was monitoring the Empire's channels. I am not just deflecting. I am returning. The Ares suddenly glowed with a dark purple light. Dozens of small spherical objects ejected from its hull. They looked like metal ball bearings. They floated in space for a moment, and then suddenly shot toward the Imperial fleet. What are those? Sarah asked, leaning forward. The spheres moved with incredible speed. They did not explode when they hit the Imperial ships. Instead, they latched onto the hulls. The Ares was not firing weapons. It was hacking the fleet. On the screen, the massive dreadnoughts of Admiral Roberts' fleet began to turn. But they were not turning toward the Ares. They were turning toward each other. What is going on? David screamed. The Titan is firing on the Vengeance. They are shooting their own ships. They lost control, James realized, his eyes wide. The small ships are taking over their computers. It's a virus. A mechanical virus. The scene became a massacre. The mighty Imperial fleet, confused and crippled, began to destroy itself. Frigates blasted cruisers. Carriers launched fires that attacked their own motherships. Admiral Roberts' voice came over the radio, screaming in panic. Disable the weapons. Cut the power. They are inside the system. They are inside the transmission cut off with a burst of static. The Ares moved then. It glided through the chaos, untouched. It stopped directly in front of the Titan. The great flagship was dead in the water, its lights flickering. Leave this sector. The voice of Commander John boomed over every frequency, sounding like a god speaking from the clouds. We are the wall. Do not cross us. Then, the Ares did something that defied all science. It began to spin, faster and faster. The space around it started to warp and twist. The stars in the background looked like they were being pulled toward the ship. Captain, David yelled, I am reading a massive gravitational anomaly. It is a black hole. They are creating a black hole. Get us out of here. James shouted to the helmsman. Maximum warp, now. The Invictus turned and fled, just as the singularity expanded. The tiny black hole sucked in the disabled Titan and the damaged ships around it. The great metal warships were crumpled like aluminum cans and swallowed into the darkness. It was quick, silent, and absolute. Minutes later, the Invictus was light years away. The bridge was silent. Sarah was slumped in her chair, crying softly. The crew looked at James with eyes full of terror. They had seen the end of their world. James Miller looked out at the peaceful stars ahead. But he knew the peace was over. They had awoken a giant, and the giant was coming for them. The Empire had always thought it was the hunter. Today, they learned they were just the prey. The golden hallways of the Imperial Palace were usually filled with the sounds of whispers and soft footsteps. But today, the atmosphere was thick with fear. The capital city, a massive metropolis of steel and glass that covered an entire planet, was silent. The news had spread faster than light. The First Fleet, the pride of the Empire, had been destroyed. Not by an alien armada, not by a rebellion, but by a single shadow. Deep inside the palace, in the great chamber of the Senate, thousands of representatives from across the galaxy gathered. They sat in tiers of seats that rose high above the floor. At the bottom, on a raised platform, sat the throne. Emperor Michael sat there. He was an old man, wearing robes of white and gold, but his face was pale. He looked tired and, for the first time in his long reign, afraid. Standing in the center of the open floor was High General William. He was a giant of a man, covered in scars, but he stood with his head bowed. Next to him stood Captain James Miller. James looked out of place in his simple, dirty uniform among the fine silk clothes of the senators. "Tell him what you saw, Captain," Emperor Michael said. His voice was weak, echoing in the huge room. James took a deep breath. He felt the weight of every eye in the galaxy on him. "I saw the end of the First Fleet, Your Majesty. We faced a vessel they call the Ares. It was small, ugly, and dark. But it moved faster than anything we have ever built. It did not fly. It stepped through space." He paused, remembering the terror of the battle. It did not use plasma or lasers. It used gravity. It tore the Valiant in half with a silent beam. It crushed our shields like they were glass. When Admiral Robert arrived to destroy them, the enemy did not run. They released small drones that hacked our ships. They made the Titan fire on its own allies. And finally, they created a black hole. They swallowed the flagship. A murmur went through the crowd of senators. It was a sound of panic and disbelief. "Who are they?" a senator shouted from high above. "Are they aliens from another dimension?" "They are humans," James said, his voice clear. "The commander spoke to us. His name was John. He spoke our language. He spoke of a place called New Earth." The room exploded into shouting. "Humans? Impossible. We are the only humans. There are no other colonies." Silence. Emperor Michael commanded. He stood up slowly. The noise died down instantly. "For centuries, we believed we were alone in the universe, the masters of all creation. We were wrong. There's another branch of humanity, hidden in the dark, and they have surpassed us." High General William stepped forward. "Your Majesty, this changes everything. Our technology is obsolete compared to theirs. Our weapons cannot touch them. If they decide to attack the capital, we cannot stop them." The Emperor paced back and forth on the platform. "I will not accept this. I will not bow to ghosts hiding in the nebula. We are the Galactic Empire. We have billions of soldiers. We have countless resources. But they have the power to crush stars," James said softly. "General, Admiral Robert was arrogant. He thought numbers were enough. He was wrong. If we fight them the same way, we will die." Emperor Michael stopped pacing and looked at James. "What do you suggest, Captain? Should we surrender? Should we beg for mercy?" "No. Your Majesty, James said firmly, we should not fight them yet. We should be afraid. We should use that fear. We need to understand their technology. We need to find where they live. But mostly, we need to prepare. The commander gave us a warning. He said, do not cross us. We must listen. The emperor looked at the faces of his senators. He saw fear, but he also saw anger. The empire did not like to be afraid. Fear often turned into hate. Hate turned into war. I, General William, Michael said, I declare a state of emergency across the entire empire. All industry will be converted to war production. We will rebuild the fleet. We will find scientists to study this gravity technology. We will hunt for New Earth. And if we find them? William asked. Michael clenched his fist. Then we will burn them before they burn us. This is the beginning of the Great War. We will not rest until the shadow is destroyed. The senators cheered, though it was a nervous cheer. They wanted to believe their empire was still strong. But James Miller stood silently, looking at the floor. He knew the truth. They were preparing for a fight they could not win. They were poking a dragon, and the dragon was already awake. Meanwhile, millions of light years away, in the peaceful silence of a hidden nebula, the Ares glided through the void. Inside the ship, the lights were dim, simulating the night cycle. Commander John sat in the mess hall, holding a cup of hot coffee. He stared at the steam rising from the cup. The adrenaline of the battle had faded, leaving him with a heavy exhaustion. Pilot Alex walked in, looking just as tired. He sat down opposite John with a sigh. We did it, Commander. We made it back to the nebula. The ship is masked. They can't track us here. John nodded. For now. Do you think they will listen? Alex asked. Do you think the Empire will be too scared to follow us? John took a sip of his coffee. No. I saw the look on that captain's face. James Miller. He knows the truth. But the people above him, the Emperor and the generals, they are addicted to power. Fear makes them dangerous, not weak. So, what happens now? John looked up, his eyes hard. Now, we prepare. We send a message to the Council on New Earth. Tell them to activate the defense platforms. Tell the scientists to double their efforts on the new engine designs. You really think it will be a war? Alex asked. A big war? John stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the swirling gases of the nebula that hid their home. The Empire cannot sleep knowing there is someone stronger than them. They will come. They will come with everything they have. They will try to hunt us down. He turned back to Alex. But they made a mistake today. They thought we were just a small group of rebels. They don't know that we are the descendants of Earth. They don't know that when humans are pushed into a corner, they fight back harder than anyone else in the universe. John placed his hand on the cold glass. We wanted peace. We stayed hidden to avoid war. But if the Empire wants a fight, if they want to come into our home and threaten our families, then we will give them a war they will never forget. On the screen of the bridge, the course was set for New Earth. The Ares was just one ship, but soon there would be many. The galaxy had been quiet for a long time, ruled by the boring, arrogant Empire. That era was over. The humans had returned, and they brought the fire with them.